You know, and I did something 34 years ago that I had no business doing that I did. Riding through the French Quarters looking for cheap sex, picked up somebody, and my whole world turned upside down. You know, people say they want people to rehabilitate themselves, but it goes on and on. And I've read numerous articles, and it is the new leprosy.
I could have gotten myself a high recidivism rate, like going into incarceration, because I used to have to lie to be able to at least be productive, right, in the city, for us, like education. You know, when you have to register as a sex offender, you have to report to the schools that you're a sex offender. I didn't do it because I feel like if I would have reported it to the school, you know, it probably would have been hard for me to obtain the bachelor's in science. It probably would have been hard for me to obtain this master's in criminal justice, you know, or whatever. So I just try to keep low key. Another thing about the sex offender registry, it played a part in my employment. And I was working for this nursing facility, and someone found out that I was a sex offender. They used to have these little papers that come out in the city of New Orleans. You could pay like $1, and you could go to the gas station, and they used to have all these, you know, people that were sex offenders on this piece of paper. And what happened was someone slid the newspaper article under the administrative door. I had to report to the office the next day or whatever. Luckily, the administrator, he was a minority of the LGBTQ. He went, did some research on the law, iterated, whatever. He was like, this is awful, you know, this law can affect me. So what he did was, he had to follow the law, or whatever. He, you know, called the Department of Health and Hospitals. He talked to the owner of their facility and explained to them the situation or whatever. However, I kept my job, you know, but he left, and it was like another administration came in or whatever, and someone did it again, and I lost my job. I got fired because I was a part of, you know, the sex offender registry. And when you're a part of that registry, it's so hard to even live, you know. I mean, it was times that I had went through a depression, you know, because it was like I couldn't do anything. It's like I just couldn't do nothing. I remember driving in my car, and I was going to work, and I just stopped in the middle of this intersection on Williams and Veterans, and I just wanted a car to just hit me, because it's just this stigma, right? That this having to have these bold orange letters on your license, capitalized, and just having to present this ID, right, to everybody when you have to cash a check, when you get stopped by a police officer, when you you're trying to get into a club, you know, anything that you have to have your ID. And it just was so embarrassing that I had got to the point that I just like kind of eliminated myself from society. And because of so much weight that, you know, just being a sex offender can, you know, it carries on an individual. It was very hard, very challenging for me or whatever, but, you know, I kind of overcame it and whatever. And sometimes, like even today, you know, I'll show people like, oh look, this is what I was at one time. You know, I have to remind myself of, you know, to try to overcome, you know, what I had to go through, you know, just being a part of their registry.
One of the things is difficulties finding a job. Everywhere I would go, fill out an application, when I knew that that's the reason why. Of course, they wouldn't tell you that's why, because wherever I went, I knew for a fact that they were hiring, because the individuals that would let me know they were hiring actually worked at some of these places and knew for a fact that there were positions that was available. that happened many times, up to the point to where I, kind of like Wendy said, just wanted to give up and throw in the towel, right? Because of the fact that it's so difficult to find a job in a situation like this, it puts a hardship on your family, on your wife, on your children. If you're not able to work to help provide for your family, it's very frustrating, very depressing. My wife had she still has it, it's a salon and day spa. When some of her employees who had been there for a long time, and even some of the most recent employees that found out about my conviction, quit. And that left her in a horrible situation when some of them just abruptly quit their job. Some of her clients stopped coming to the salon because of that. Now, mind you, here I wasn't employed, can't find a job, right? Now her employees are quitting because of this. Her clients stopped coming, not all of them, but most of them. So, and she was the breadwinner, and therefore were no longer making the money that she was making before because of an issue like this. And again, it became mentally and emotionally paralyzing. It was very embarrassing, shameful. Most of the times it's like I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to see anybody, didn't want to talk to anybody. More or less like hibernation, just stay inside, stay away from people, which is not good for a human being. Right? Registering. Registering is another thing that is very depressing, especially when you're having to register every 3 months for the rest of your life, versus at the beginning when you first committed the crime, you were supposed to register for only 10 years. 3 years into the probation, they come up with a new law, made the law retroactive, and said, okay, well, individuals who commit certain types of sex offenses falls into a certain category when they came up with SORNA, okay? And therefore, those individuals were required to register, which I'm one of them, for life, every 3 months. That's another thing. We have to renew our driver's license every year. Every year. And we have to obtain an identification card. What is the use for the ID if we have a driver's license if it's not all about money, 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 and not life? Send notifications every 5 years, right? Every 5 years you have to send out notifications. It just happened with me not very long ago. For some apparent reason, they claim that somebody dropped the ball, and the last time I sent out notifications was in 2004, okay? A couple of months ago, I started an organization which was a Black Chamber of Commerce. It was the capital area Black Chamber of Commerce. This organization was about to actually really start flourishing. I had already scheduled one of our very first fundraising events, etc. And when most of the people that were involved, that was in the organization, found out that I had to register. Now, they knew about the sex offense, but they didn't know that I had to send out notifications, and I did it because I hadn't sent any out since 2004. So when they found out that I had to send out notifications and it had to be placed in the newspaper again, they were like, oh my God, you know, this is going to mess everything up. Nobody's going to want to be a part of this organization. Nobody's going to want to sponsor, give money into this organization if they find this out once this is placed in the papers and once notifications are sent out everywhere in your community. So it created a lot of problems, and I ended up having to step down because of this, okay? But then we still talk about rehabilitation. We still talk about reform and continue to impose and inflict laws, rules, and regulations on people to continue punishing them. It's a continued punishment.
Nobody could understand what you're really going through. You know, when I first got out, it was, you had to pay $120 for the classes. And you had to pay your probation fees. And you were restricted where you could live. You had to get a job and all of that and do that. And if you didn't, you would be in violation and you go back to prison. Which is, to me, counterproductive of what everything you're talking about, because I did something wrong. I take responsibility for that. But how long do you have to pay for this? When they did the sex offender registration, everything was retroactive. It didn't matter if you...
It's civil.
Yeah, and then they had civil commitment. I wrote that down. You know, they got now close to 500 people in prison right now because they have nowhere to go to stay. So, and since they don't have a place to go to stay, they keep them in prison. But the catch part of this is eventually they're gonna get out of their time. They got to let them go. And guess what's gonna happen? Because they still don't have a place to stay. Now they lock them back up and put them back and give them more time. That's called the civil commitment. So that's where we've gotten to, because Adam Wash, the Megan, and all these people had the publicity to do it, and the media, they portrayed it so out there now. People that come in prison with sex crimes, they're probably beat up, abused, all the way through parish prison until they get to the prison, and then, you know, and then by that time their head is messed up, you know, nobody cares.
The children, there's a study that was done on the registry, how the registry affects children, right? 47% had been harassed by others, 59% were ridiculed by others, 52% suffered teasing by others, 22% were physically attacked by others. Now those are kids that has nothing to do with the offense that either the mother or father has committed, right? 65% feel left out with other children, 77% suffer depression, 73% feel anxiety, 63% suffer from fear, 13% have suicidal tendencies, and 80% have anger issues. So we see here that not only that the registry is affecting the offender, but doing serious harm to their children and their wives in more ways than one. The sex offender registry is directly responsible for harassment, property damage, assault, and murder of innocent people. The results of one study show that after a family member has been identified by neighbors or others as a registered offender, the non-offender family members living with him have experienced the following. 44% have been threatened or harassed by neighbors. 7% have been physically assaulted or injured. 27% had property damage.
You know, with the registration, you know, I don't understand why I got to get my license every year, and everybody else get their license every 4 or 6 years. I don't understand why I got to get an ID card, and that's an extra $18. I mean, I really don't understand what the purpose is. Right. You're working every day, you take care of your family, you do what you're supposed to do.
Everybody's life is valuable, regardless of what type of crime they may have committed at some point in their lives. We're constantly talking about rehabilitation, reforms. Well, how can a human being be rehabilitated and continue to be punished after the rehabilitation? What is the purpose for rehabilitation if you continue to believe and to convince the public to believe that this person has not changed, this person may commit another sex act, a crime, right? What is the use? Is it about just making money